The Innocents, out in theaters, new Norwegian horror film, one of those that scare not with ghosts and demons jumping suddenly out of shadows, but rather with eerie atmosphere and creepy characters. The film takes place mostly in daytime and focuses on a group of kids. At the beginning of the film, Ida moves from her old town to a new town together with her family, her parents, and her older sister Anna, who is autistic. This clearly makes things difficult for Ida to sort of relate to her sister. As we see in the initial scenes, it's very clear, even without dialogue, that there's not a lot of love between the sisters because there's no contact with Anna whatsoever. She doesn't engage with other people. At least until the girls meet a neighbor's daughter, Aisha, on the playground, who seems to have some sort of psychic power where she's able to hear Anna in her head and talk back to her. And when the two are together, you can see some real improvement, that Anna starts to sort of become not autistic, become engaging with other people. However, Ida seems more interested in another kid from the neighborhood, a boy named Ben, who also exhibits some supernatural powers, but unlike Aisha, right from the get-go, he seems more interested in using those powers in cruel and violent ways instead of helping other people. So the story is essentially about the loss of innocence, about children realizing that their actions and words can have severe consequences. It explores the casual violence and cruelty that kids can exhibit towards others because they're unaware of the harm they're sometimes causing. And the film goes hard on that premise by giving the children powers and making their impact on the adults and on the other children just that much larger. I think it also cleverly draws the central line of conflict for Ida, as she's being sort of pulled in two opposite directions by Aisha and Ben. Aisha being the good example and Ben being the bad one. But as it often is for kids, it's not so easy for Ida to realize that stark difference until things go too far. Yeah, if that makes sense. There's a really eerie, strange atmosphere to the film, built up by the use of sound and cinematography, which often uses shots that are either upside down or focusing on shadows instead of the real objects, out of perspective shots to signal that there's something wrong with what's going on. There is also a number of really awful scenes, and by awful I don't mean badly written or performed, but rather awful to watch because of how nasty they are with the violence. And in particular, there's one scene of extreme animal cruelty. So be warned, if you can't stand that kind of thing, this movie is not for you. Not in the slightest. I consider myself to be pretty resistant to that sort of stuff, and even I had to look away a couple of times. And so, at the end of the day, I wouldn't ever call the film enjoyable because it's not even meant to be that, but it is very gripping and unnerving. And as an original horror film with a unique premise and a creepy execution, it is actually quite good at what it's trying to do.